For those of you who don't know, Chloe is a medical student, and she did a research project on urinary incontinence. And I know we didn't prep too much on that, but I did want to talk about that a little. And obviously, I think it, like my perspective is obviously in terms of like mainstream sports and like professionalized sports. Like, what did your research yield like from that? Did you hear that?
So my research was looking mostly into trying to correlate incontinence severity with musculoskeletal findings. So basically like seeing what motion preferences all the different parts of the body had. And we actually found a really big correlation with the atlantoaxial joint. So that's your C1 on C2. And with like rotation to the right at that joint, you're more likely to have increased urinary incontinence severity. And with rotation to the left at that joint, you were actually like that was correlated with a decreased incontinence severity index score. And so the thought behind that is your vagus nerve runs through there and then communicates with the celiac. And there have been some research studies that have been conducted on animals that found with sacral nerve stimulation that there was actually a feedback mechanism between the sacral plexus and the vagus nerve. I know I'm getting really sciencey.
I was going to say, now do it in English.
It seems like, yeah. So basically, it seems like there's some other factors that are contributing to the severity potentially of the severity of urinary incontinence that people are having. And we also found some like dysfunctions in the lumbar and sacral areas that could be reflective of people bracing improperly also. So as far as things looking forward, bracing is definitely a piece to look at. Like if you're having trouble with urinary incontinence, definitely take a look at your bracing and make sure that you're supporting your pelvic floor well and not putting unneeded stress on your bladder. There are some really incredible like pelvic floor PTs that you can go to work on that. And then also like if you have a DO physician that you go to or a chiropractic would know like what the findings are that I'm talking about. They can take a look at my paper and try to look at those things on you and see if they can treat you and see if that'll make it better. There needs to be more research in terms of seeing if the dysfunctions that we found, if treating those would be helpful or not. But we did find that it correlated with the severity of incontinence that elite female powerlifters were having, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, and it's like I've had personal training clients who like don't want to deadlift because of it. Like it's like I know a lot of people like will now Wu-Tang, like especially at the high level. If you're a high level powerlifter, you're just gonna go for it. But like if we're trying to get more people into the sport, it is a barrier because what would happen is like they would get around that like 225 and they'd be making great progress and they'd be feeling great and they get to a certain level and they would like I was surprised how widespread it was, honestly. I've had 5 different in-person clients, and I don't do as much training as I used to, but like I was just so shocked how many people like were dealing with this. And so when I heard that you were doing this, I'm like, oh, we got to talk about it. Like what are the solutions? Are there things we can do? Because it for like obviously for high level powerlifter it doesn't matter, but like for a general person, they're just not going to deadlift. Like they just don't care.
And I've had people message me on Instagram saying that they're like, I was getting ready to quit powerlifting until like I saw you do a study on this, right? And so like even just me putting the study out seems like it's helped some women be like, oh, like even the high level lifters are experiencing this, you know, like this isn't something for me to be ashamed of, because people don't know. If there's no literature on it and people don't talk about it, then people think that it's just them and, you know, they're embarrassed by it. So I hopefully just having like the exposure will help more females get into the sport. But outside of that, just learning how to brace properly, ask people that are experienced in the sport and maybe have experienced this problem also, see if they can make sure that you're bracing correctly.
Yeah, so I actually did her study back a year or so ago because I've dealt with it like my entire lifting career, like 10 plus years. But that's a big thing. Like girls are way too embarrassed to talk about it. And so then they're like, oh, I'm not going to lift because I might pee myself. So I just try to be like open and honest about it with my little personal anecdotes and kind of put a little humor in it. Because I mean, what else are you going to do? So yeah, that's what I do. And like learning how to breathe and brace properly helps me a lot. And then I have a lot of like which I don't know the sciencey way to explain my issues other than like leading up to Worlds here, my TFL's been real tight, my hips have been a little tight, and that it like over tightens my pelvic floor. Instead of my pelvic floor not being strong enough, it like over tightens and then it squeezes my bladder. And so that's something I've worked like with my chiropractor and PT to kind of figure out and manage. So, and it's always changing, but yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so it's something that has some solutions that can be treated. Is there something that works better than other things that like people could potentially do at home, I guess?
Yeah. Did I cut out originally when I was talking about this?
Yeah, well, you mentioned, I think, a couple, like, you mentioned a list of different things, but I'm just trying to give people that quick hit. I know that's not.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the biggest things are going to be making sure that you're bracing correctly. And then not like figuring out what your triggers are for urinary incontinence. And for a lot of people, that's carbonation and caffeine. So if you're like doing your pre-workout, if of course you might want like your caffeine in there, but like maybe not doing the energy drink component, trying to see, if the carbonation is playing any role in that. Because it definitely does for me. Like as soon as I have carbonated drinks before I deadlift, like I know I will pee my pants during that session. If I drink like a Red Bull or something before I lift. So those are quick and easy tips, but it's different for everybody.
Yeah, like fluid management in general too, because I used to do bodybuilding. It was like, oh, drink like 1 to 2 gallons of water a day. But you only need like 2/3 of your body weight in ounces in fluids actually. And also you have to take into account like watery foods as well. So diminishing my fluid intake. And then I drink more electrolytes, so I'm not as thirsty, especially on like squat and deadlift days. That's also helped a lot as well.
Yeah, no, I mean this topic definitely warrants like a whole podcast, like in a full like serious. I have a serious personality.
Yeah,
it warrants my serious personality, actually doing research and actually asking serious questions. But I just wanted to touch on it because I think as powerlifting becomes more mainstream, it's going to be more talked about, and it's going to be more of a thing that is going to need some handholding for people, and so it definitely is something that'll have to be talked about. But it is now time.
Yeah, we can do a follow-up on this if you want.
Oh yeah, no, we do. Just like,
and I actually have like
that'll be the whole topic, and maybe like me and you will sit down and we'll have like a pre-interview where you can actually like educate me, and then I can ask better questions.
And I can see too. I can see too if there's a urogynecologist I know. I could see if she'd be willing to come on to kind of talk about it more from her treatment aspect of things too.